Hi everybody, my name is Alday. I'm the coach of the Los Angeles Linoones. I'm going to be participating this year in the YouTube Pokemon Draft League. It's a fun league that my friend and I decided to start. I mean, he mostly runs it. I kind of just started the server. Um, but yeah, so we had a really fun draft concept, which was draft whatever you want. We kind of figured for the first time, let's just to keep it fresh, something spice it up. Let's just make it exciting, and let's just let everybody draft whatever they want. I think a lot of times when you see draft league, especially when we're this late into a game, I think believe the game came out in 22. Talking about Scarlet and Violet. Um, we've gone through so many different formats with restricteds, non-restricteds. I think we're on restricted right now. Paradox and all those types of Pokemon, and we figured, you know what, let's just make it easy on ourselves, and also just kind of like it's kind of spicy to just be able to draft whatever you want. So let's just see what happens. So yeah, I'm gonna just recap kind of briefly what I went through, some of my mindset, some of the things that I was looking forward to in this draft, and yeah, and then kind of go from there. I might potentially do one where I kind of recap everyone's draft, but we'll see, depending on how much time I have, and also just kind of overall in general, kind of how it goes, how long it takes me to get this one out. So yeah, so as you can see here on my screen, this is the Pokemon in order of how I drafted them. I figured in this draft, so I had the number one overall pick. We did a randomized order, and I ended up coming out with the number one pick. So that meant that I would have my first pickings at whatever Pokemon I wanted, and I would be getting wheel route picks. So it was cool because then after my first pick, I could stack picks after that. Kind of sucked because then now I'm sort of I did one pick and then I had to wait 23 picks in between my next pick. So I kind of figured, you know what, I need my first Pokemon to be able to do lots of different things. Primarily be an aggressive attacker, and then give me some sort of utility as well. I think it's important, depending on the draft style that you want to do, that you pick something that fits. So for me, I wanted to do something that was a little more on the hyper aggressive side. I think in a format like this where there's kind of just carte blanche and you can just kind of pick whatever you want. I think just having offensive tools to be able to hit anything is just super valuable. It kind of takes a little bit of the thinking out of the team, so that way you're not sort of on a week-to-week basis, trying to really science how you're going to win this matchup. So for myself, I just wanted to sort of take a little bit of the thinking out of that and just say, hey, you know what? Let me just try to bring as many offensive tools this week and see if I can go ahead and just crack this game open and just win. So for my first pick, I chose Fluttermane. It's a mon that obviously is very popular in VGC. It's got great stats here. It's got here. We'll just sort everything by BST. So Fluttermane's got great stats. It's got good special attack, special defense, speed. It's got good stat distribution. It's got a little bit. It's obviously frail on the physical side, but what it offers, I think, was really great. It offers me Moonblast. It offers me Dazzling Gleam. So great stab options. Fairies and Ghosts is a good stab option. And I wanted to start my draft off by getting me something that will start rounding out the Fire, Water, Grass and Fairy, Steel, Dragon cores. I think that those cores, while they are the two very essential cores in Draft League, I think it's important that I start out with them. And so I wanted to start out with my first just really strong attacker, so I went with Fluttermane, and then I kind of was crossing my fingers, and then we'll see what gets back to me from there. I kind of didn't really have too much of a plan to go from there to kind of from like the rest of the mons laid out here. Iron Hands was on my original sort of like, ooh, that'd be really great if I picked it first. Urshifu was also there, so I also almost went that route. But I thought Fluttermane would be great because it also gives you the speed support option. You can go boost energy, so it gives you Thunder Wave, goes Taunt, and you can also, it has Taunt. It also has Trick Room, which is really cool. So it gives you sort of pseudo speed support because it's a really fast Pokemon, and yeah, so it gave me a lot of options from there. And then on the wheel route on the way back, I saw Chi-Yu there when it was my next pick, and I figured, oh no, I mean, Chi-Yu Fluttermane's kind of a no-brainer, right? I mean, that's kind of just hit hard, hit fast, hit often, and that was the motto for my season, and so this year for my team. So I was like, oh, that's a pretty simple pick. I was also back and forth between picking Urshifu again because Urshifu Rapid was also there. So I figured, you know what, let me just lock up my physical attacker, because I think it's always great when you're doing draft league to start with a good special attacker and a good physical attacker, and preferably if they're either members of either core, right, of the Fire, Water, Grass, and Fairy, Steel, Dragon core. But you know what, Chi-Yu was a little too much to give up there, and honestly, Chi-Yu actually, when you take into account its Beads of Ruin, it has actually a higher attack stat than a special attack stat than Calyrex, than Shadow Rider, which is something that a friend told me about, and so I figured, you know what, let's do it then, because if you combine that with Fluttermane, oh boy, those two are can start exerting a lot of offensive pressure. It can become quite oppressive if not dealt with correctly. And then since I had a back-to-back pick, I figured, you know what, I need to lock up a good physical attacker. And when you're doing hyper offensive, it's important to have redirection and fake out support, because you like to go fast, and so if teams kind of key in and try to take out your more frail attackers, it's important to have something that can protect them or have a change of pace. So I figured, you know what, since Iron Hands is there, Iron Hands is probably one of the most broken Pokemon ever made. I mean, look at this thing's stats. It's pretty ridiculous. 154 HP, 140 attack, 108 defense. I know its special defense is 68, but with an HP stat like that, it really covers for that. You slap an Assault Vest on this thing and oh boy, have fun. This thing takes like 5-6 hits sometimes to just remove. So I figured it'd be a great partner option. And so then from there we had to kind of wait a few more picks, and obviously we had to go back down the wheel route with 13 picks. And then I kind of saw Porygon 2 there, and I figured, I know it's another special attacker, but you know what? Porygon 2 in a format like this, with a team like this, I think could be a good late game win condition. I think Porygon 2 is a mon that is very interesting. It kind of can just fit on any team. You don't really ever have to build around it, because when you build around it, it's really just like, do I have a team that can poke holes in the opponent's team, get into their back line, and remove anything that tries to get in the way of Porygon 2 winning the game, which is i.e. just fighting types, right? Like, as long as your team threatens fighting types, which I have a fairy type, really strong fairy type. I got a really bulky fighting type, so I can hang in there versus the fighting types. As long as I remove the fighting type weakness on the other team, late game Porygon 2 could just come in and sweep. Also, there is a Dozogiri that was being drafted. I didn't want to deal with it. I think Porygon 2 is a very natural pick to go against Dozogiri, because with Trace, it just traces Oblivious, and from there it can't really touch it. And then I think, fun fact, it does get toxic, so it also helps against stallier teams. So yeah, Porygon 2 is kind of a no-brainer. I don't have an Eviolite mon, especially in this format. I think where the power level is so high. You're probably not going to see very many Eviolite mon, so I figure that's a pretty easy item mon to have. Also, this thing gets ridiculously bulky. We're all kind of very familiar with it. So, plus 50% to these stats is, it's pretty messed up. To a 90 and 95 mon that already has decent HP. So, yeah, and then I from there, I didn't want to fall behind in the physical attacking category, so I kind of filtered by what are the fastest, or what are the strongest physical attackers, and I saw Landorus Therian was there, and I'm like, oh, wait a minute, this thing was the VGC king before Incineroar got here, but it also gives me Intimidator, which I think is also really important, because I think sometimes when teams look at hyper-offensive teams, it's like, how can I slow them down? Intimidate's a really good way of doing that, because obviously it's a quick way to just stat drop it, and you see Iron Hands there, and you see, I guess just Iron Hands really at this point, and then Landorus there. It really helps to slow down physical attackers. So I figured, and I looked at my team, and I said, well, you know what? You can throw a physical attacker out there, and a really bulky one, and then you can try to whittle down my more frail, special attacker. So I figured, let's bring an Intimidate attacker into the fold. And ground spam is very, very good, especially since most teams don't have a lot of answers into it. It's a pretty neutral typing, and it has access to Earthquake, which is a really strong stab spread ground type move. But it's 100 base power and accuracy, so you can kind of really just start spamming it. And Landorus gives a lot of interesting options, because you can also scarf this thing. Chi-Yu is also a scarf candidate, but I think Landorus Therian offers a little more value in terms of that it can do U-turn, it can do stab. With Terra, it gets access to Terra Flying, Terra Blast, which is nice, because before I think it was kind of difficult. And Flying and Ground are two very nice neutral stabs to have, and they're very spammable, because a lot of teams don't have too many resistances, and they hit a lot of things for good effective damage. And so at this point, you probably kind of realized I'm probably kind of throwing this type chart out the window. I think at this point it's like as long as I have enough things to cover one or two different matchups, it's okay. So on the wheel route, when it got back to me, I figured, you know what, let's lock up my speed control options, because the biggest thing with hyper offensive teams is you must control the pace of the game. Usually you do that by starting moving your opponent's options, but going fast is really, really important. So I didn't want to leave Fluttermane on an island to kind of be my only fast speed support. Porygon obviously gets Trick Room, and Fluttermane also gets Trick Room, but that's reverse hyper offensive, right? Because you set up Trick Room, you start trying to reverse sweep sweep, go hyper offensively in a slow environment. So I figured, you know what, let's just get something that's super fast, and I needed a water type, because if you start noticing my type chart, I kind of ignored the Fire, Water, Grass and Fairy Steel Dragon, so I was getting kind of nervous because I'm like, oh boy, my next, outside of my first, two Mons there that I picked, the Fluttermane and the Chi-Yu, I haven't really addressed that. So I said, okay, well, let me get my water type now. And so I was going through a lot of them. They had been picked by this point. My Lodic had been picked. I think Suicune might have not been on the table still, but I just felt like Suicune was just too passive. So I felt, let's go for something else that goes really well. And also, if you notice in high power formats, a lot of those mons tend to be dragons. Dragons are weak to Fairy, but they're also weak to Ice. And a lot of them have dual typings, like Garchomp or like a Dragonite, that are dual weak to Ice. So I figured, you know what? Let's grab an Ice type also. And I figured, you know what? Let's just do Iron Bundle. It's right there. It's a pretty really, really fast, easy speed control option. It's got blazing speed, I think, at 136, so it becomes the fastest mon on my team. It outspeeds Fluttermane by 1, which is great. It's not Prankster Tailwind. But speaking of Prankster Tailwind, I figured, you know what? Let's get Prankster Tailwind, because what if I don't want to tie up my bundle or my Fluttermane into being those options and give it that pressure? So I'm like, I pretty much at this point I was leaning all into hyper offensive, so I took Illumise, and then also because for obvious reasons you get Encore. I believe it gets Encore. Yep, it does. It gets Encore, and then it gets Weather. And then it gets most weathers and Sunny Day and Rain Dance. So it gets the important weathers that I'll need for my team to make it go. And at that point, I felt like I was at a really good point with the draft. And then for my next pick, went on the wheel route. This was a Torkoal. This Blue Bonnet was a Torkoal and a Corviknight. And I figured, you know what, Torkoal would be great because it activates Fluttermane. But I felt like, you know what, as good as an option it is, and as good of a Trick Room on that it also could be, because my team could lean heavily both ways, I felt like getting a Grass type would be much more beneficial here. Also, I didn't have redirection, right? I think one of the principles we talked about earlier is with hyper offensive teams, you want a little bit of redirection, so that way it gives you the 1 or 2 extra hits that you need in order to keep going. And Root Bonnet offers that with Rage Powder, right? It's a little bit faster in Moonless. It's obviously based off of it, so it gets very similar move pulls. It gets Spore, it gets Rage Powder, which is redirection, and so then I decided to trade it after the draft. So that's where Blue Bonnet gets me. So yeah, it offers me all those different things. And then I needed a Steel type, so I figured, you know what, Corviknight's pretty solid. I could pair it with Landorus and maybe do some spam Earthquake stuff. It's also a late game win condition. If you remove the things that threaten Corviknight, you can also start exerting a lot of pressure, because it can become quite a difficult Pokemon to remove. It's got a few weaknesses, which is fire, electricity, but it's got a lot of really valuable resists, and 2 immunities, which is, the more immunities the better. And if you see, my team's kind of littered with immunities. That's why I kind of picked them, because I figured, well, you know what, my type chart might not be the best looking thing in the world. I can overcompensate by just having mons with decent immunities that cover each other really, really well. And Corviknight's one of those. And then for my last pick, I kind of wanted a typing that I didn't already have. And I kind of also wanted something just super aggressive. What can I just throw out there and just start turn 1, just boom, attack. Obviously, a lot of these mons can just start doing that, right? But I just Iron Boulder there, and I said, oh, well, it's got that really cool, Mighty Cleave move, and, it hits through Protect, so it's kind of like an Urshifu move, right? And so I figured it's cool. You can't turn the ability of that move off. It's not like an Urshifu, right? You can face a Weezing, and then it can turn that ability off. This one you can't, because it's a move effect. So I figured, and I didn't have any Psychic Stab, and I feel like Psychic's a little bit I guess it's rated. I don't think it's underrated or overrated in Draft League. I just think it's nice to have because there's a lot of interesting things that could be really annoying. For example, if you faced it, if was an Amoonguss that got drafted, you can threaten Amoonguss pretty quickly with the quick removal, or you can threaten with poison types. And just overall in Psychic Terrain, Psy Spam, it's good against them. If the other teams want to set up Psychic Terrain, you can start it, it boosts your Psychic type moves that Iron Boulder gets, and you can start going from there. So yeah, and then I just kind of sorted these by things that I was looking at to get. I think, with my speed support, I think having enough decent speed support. I got Thunderwave here. I've got Spore. I've got a lot of Taunt on my team, which I was really happy about because Taunt's really important especially against a team like mine. If you get your setup correctly, you can get going really easily. So Taunt was important to have. Lots of my mons have it. And then obviously I have the weather support. I only get one knockoff, which is, neither here nor there. Knockoff's nice. It's disruptive, but I don't think it's entirely necessary for my team. Like I said, I'm not really caring what my opponent's trying to do. I'm mostly trying to just exert pressure as fast as possible by threatening knockout. So regardless of what the item is, it doesn't really matter. So it wasn't too much of a big thing. The Ice Spinner was cool because it's a little bit of terrain control. If you notice, there's a bit of terrain control on my team. I have electric terrain here, but that's really the only one that I would see that I would need. So I didn't really plug in the rest of them. I was kind of like, I don't have any haze, but I have clear smog with Brute Bonnet. So I figured, that's okay. That should be enough to kind of get me through the matchups. I just, again, I don't anticipate to letting my opponent set up too much, and even if you do, I'm probably chunking you for more than 50% on each turn, so the setup probably wouldn't help you too much in order to do a reverse sweep. And I have things like Porygon 2 and Iron Hands to slow the pace of the battle a little bit, but also still exert a lot of offensive pressure. So overall, I was pretty happy with my draft. Again, this team's all gas, no brakes. Which is really how I want to play this season. Overall, I think this is it's hard. I don't want to rate it. There's really no point in rating this. I mean, it's gonna look like a 10 regardless. I mean, all the teams look like 10s here because these are all just ridiculously powerful mons. So if I do a review where we do all the mons on the team in the league, then I'll probably apply a rating because you can compare them to each other. Because obviously this looks like a dang all-star team. I mean, this is like best of the best of physical attackers and special attackers and support mons and roll mons and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah. So thanks so much for tuning in. I'll get it out there eventually. This video, hopefully within the week. I'm recording this on a Monday. So yeah, thanks so much for watching and stay tuned. Thanks so much. Alrighty, bye.